I am upset though that Michael is number 25 most used password, and David is 292.
Well, obviously, I'm more popular than you are.
You're listening to Nerds Out of Water with Michael Lobb and David Kemmis.
Welcome everybody to Nerds Out of Water. Nerds Out of Water is a podcast brought to you by Michael Lobb and David Kemmis, two good friends who have been partnering in business on and off for about 20 years. Michael runs TeamScale, providing trusted technology advice and solutions to companies having trouble scaling up, enabling those businesses to grow and keep technologies on track.
And David runs One Bright Cloud, where he heads up a team of techs and futurists looking at autonomous vehicles, AI, and digital transformation as a prerequisite to Industry 4.0. We challenge our own perspectives in this podcast, and we try to see things from each other's perspective. You don't always need to agree, but after listening to this show, you should definitely have an idea.
Hopefully a better idea than us.
Yeah, maybe. Look, there's a really big thing that really matters right now, and that is around cybersecurity. Australia's been attacked. No one officially is saying from who, and understandably. But what we wanted to try and cover today, and what I'm going to ask a few questions of you on, is what you've found out, and maybe we can move into some of the protective things that people can do to keep their networks safe. There's no specific targets. They're just targeting anyone who has poor security. Big businesses, large businesses, government agencies with people information, companies with no people information, all over the place. Denial of service attacks, malware attacks, ransomware attacks, everything from A to Z.
I think the world is being attacked right now. I don't think Australia should put their hands up and say we're doing this alone. The amount of cyber issues that have been going on over the last 18 months has significantly increased. We've mentioned this a couple of times, and I really think that people need to watch out what they're doing with their own networks. And this all started early 2019, and when the Solinki code started coming out. And this is a ransomware as a service. It's a Russian piece of work that was set up and has now been sold to many other providers. Can I call them providers? Who are attacking us? What do you call the nasty people who attack?
Criminals.
Criminals. That's probably a very good way of saying it. The criminals. Yes, and there was a number of dentists attacked over in the US, and then Texas government, they got heavily attacked, and these were all ransomware. They had their computers locked down, they had information stolen, and if they didn't pay up, they lost it. The dentists, I think it was about 60 dentists over there, that their private patient data got sold. And then we go on to Australia, Toll, BlueScope Steel got attacked. An interesting one is a New York law firm that has some fairly high-profile clients, such as Lady Gaga, and they paid $42 million to get their computers back online.
And Travelex paid as well, didn't they?
Travelex paid. They paid a smaller amount, about 2.3. And then the one that everyone's been looking at recently is the Lions one, because, we've got to have 4X beer running through. But Lions is bigger than just the beer. Lions is all the milk and all the products that they've got going. And that's a $1 million ransom that was put out. What I've found scary. So that's a really brief history of how it's been going, and how where I've come into it is there have been a number of attacks using this reveal code on POS machines in Australia. Now, POS machines and banks, if they get attacked, that's a much bigger thing for everybody.
How come that would be more so than, say, your healthcare data or your private identifiable information?
I think if our private identifiable information is released, then we have some problems. But think about it if we don't have any cash movements in Australia for a day, for a week, for 2 weeks. You can't go to the EFTPOS. You can't take money out. You can't pay for fuel by touching your card. You can't go to the bank. You can't go anywhere. We need to get on top of this, and this is what the Australian government released the other day, that we have some problems and we're going to really push this hard. What are your thoughts? Where are you coming on this?
I've been banging on for ages about people actually taking care of their own security when it comes to being online. I can't say that everything that I suggest will save them from being hacked, but there's some really good practices out there, good password management, two-factor authentication, firewalls, things like that will stop the easiest things. And I'm surprised that some of the companies that are being attacked were able to be attacked. So the interesting thing that you said is that this isn't just Australia, and obviously we get the news here from Australia, and the Australian government, Scott Morrison, is saying that his advice is that we are under attack and we are being targeted. But from the looks of the clients that the companies that have been hacked that you just went through, this is worldwide. This is everywhere.
This is the UK, Canada, America.
Let's just face it, this happens every day anyway. This has been happening for years. It's just getting worse and worse because people aren't investing in, I think that people aren't investing in adequate cybersecurity and adequate education on these matters.
Yeah, I think that there has to be a cost factor that's put into this. You have to calculate your risk factor of losing your data against what the cost is of protecting your company. And there are always going to be 0 days. There's always going to be something that we don't know about. But these are simple phishing emails to start with. All of these have started with a phishing email. Click here for the invoice.
I'm always saying that humans are the weakest link in the chain, but they're also the strongest link in the chain. Sometimes, an email that has malicious content in it will get through the spam filters, but a person can actually identify that so much easier. And they can identify strange phone calls coming in going, it's Harry here from IT. Can you just tell me your password so that I can get through to the, people can tell the bullshit better than a computer if they're educated. And I worry that organizations that are vulnerable are not providing education. They might be putting people in a conference room every year to say, hey, you've got to think about cybersecurity. Here's a PowerPoint slide that I'm going to read through. Everyone goes to sleep, and then they come back to their desk the next day, and they get certified as having done the cybersecurity training every year. That's not good enough. We need to instill a feeling of, it's up to you to stop this stuff from happening. And if you can't stop this stuff from happening, then it's 2020, folks. You should know about how to use your computer if you're using one.
That's right. And we've been working with a company that's been training businesses over here on phishing emails. And they go through the course. It's about a 3-hour course. It's a self-taught course. You go through it, you watch the videos, and at the end of the course, over the 24 to 48 hours after it, they actually then send a phishing attack to everybody who has said they've done the course. And that might be one email, it might be 20 emails. It will be everything from, hey, it's your IT desk here, please, we're upgrading to 0365. yippee, press here, click here to allow, this sort of thing. Or it could be you've got a parcel waiting at reception. And they actually go the extra length to do these tests to see if you're actually looking at it. And if you don't pass, you don't pass. If you click on one, then you have to go back and redo that module. And there's multiple modules, and you can just, whether it's the phishing modules, whether it's scam or virusing, checking out for viruses, there's multiple modules you can, but at least everybody should go through a phishing email course once a year, not just a PowerPoint slide, because getting the cup of coffee halfway through the PowerPoint slide because we're bored as shit, it's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to get at least one of these a day, and you need to know, hey, this is not right. And, if it doesn't seem right, it's not right. Even if it seems like this could be legitimate, but you're questioning it just a little bit, call the person on the phone, don't use that number, but look it up in the company directory and say, hey, did you just send me an email with this Excel spreadsheet attached that says, please open me?
That's funny you should say that. I had somebody reverse into my car a couple of weeks ago, and the car's now been fixed. And then I got this weird email saying, please contact us on this number to confirm your registration. And I thought, well, that's a bit weird. And it wasn't the insurance company's phone number. So I actually phoned the insurance company and said, hey, and waited online for 35 minutes just to get spoken to. Yeah. But anyway, that's the problem at the moment. And I said, hey, I've got this email. And they said, yes, that's our direct number, so you don't have to wait in the queue. So I could... But I didn't want to ring it. I didn't want to give somebody my details of a number that I didn't recognise, because it doesn't matter how good the email is. If you don't think it's right, do something about it.
I don't recognise you. I've never seen you before. Say things like that, and it's okay to say that. And anyone who's legitimately there will go, oh, okay, well, that's, I am legitimately here, and here's my credentials, or call such and such, and they should be able to tell you. You were just talking about insurance then. Last year there was a quite a high number of calls of people getting a call just saying, hi, I'm calling about the accident, and we just wanted to get a few more details.
Yeah.
And, how many people have had an accident? And of course you're just going to go, oh yeah, okay, well, what do you want to know? And, it's just a numbers game. They're just trying to get one or two out of the 20 or 30 that they've called that, in that hour, to say, oh, thanks for calling. Yes, my date of birth is the 13th of June, 1962. And it's really, and then of course, they've got all their identifiable details so they can call the bank and start, shutting down accounts or moving money around and things like that. So these, as you said, these malicious emails that go to people who haven't had the right training, they are easily stoppable, and it's not just an IT problem, it's a human problem as well.
And going on the figures coming out of McAfee, I'm just reading it here, in 2017-2018, every person in the world with an email address received 16 phishing emails every month.
That's more email than we get in our fan mailbox.
There you go. 1 trillion phishing emails are sent every year. Trillion.
Yeah, which is just phenomenal, and that's a good percentage of the actual total number of emails that are sent every year as well.
Yeah.
When you look up in the top left-hand corner and you see a little padlock in your browser, sometimes that's not there, and there is a way for malicious actors to hijack some of the web page that you're looking at, inject some JavaScript in there to store any information that you put into that website, for example, logins or bank details or anything like that. So just keep an eye out for those things as well, because as you said, those websites are infected or have some level of phishing capability. So, keep an eye out for those things as well. Without human interaction, and human responsibility for identifying these things, we're never going to overcome it. And there can be as many computer programs as possible to try and identify these things, but we're just not going to get through these things. You mentioned about 0 days and things like that. The people that have been using this remote code execution type of vulnerability, they're looking through on things like Telerik. I know that there's a IIS bug and there's a SharePoint vulnerability and a Citrix vulnerability that they've been able to leverage to get, target the networks that they're trying to get into. Those things are not easily solved by a person. They're not. It's not a phishing email. It's a vulnerability in the actual back-end software. So for network administrators and systems administrators that are working for these organizations, it's really hard because a lot of their funding is being lowered and lowered and lowered. And at the moment, during COVID-19, a lot of companies are suffering from, their income or their revenue is lowered. So therefore they need to cut costs. So the systems administrators are saying, we just won't do that upgrade. Well, we can't afford the overtime to do this Tuesday night. So instead of doing it every second Tuesday, we'll do it maybe one Tuesday every 2 months and try to keep up. And it doesn't, that doesn't help. So
I agree.
If you're a company that size, you need to invest in your security and patching and IT and systems administrators. Pulling your help desk staff or your systems administrator staff back to 4 days a week creates a massive queue for things because most people were already overworked and under allocated or over allocated anyway. So
and they're over allocated because people aren't putting the money in to allocating enough resources for this. My team, I'm putting them all through a master course at the moment on certified ethical hacking to make sure that they understand what it is. And we've been learning so much. I thought we knew a fair bit. I thought I knew a fair bit around this, but there's things that are coming out in the last 12 months, last 6 months, last 3 months that I'm thinking that's so clever. And we're not just looking at the really clever people hacking us. We have to try and get them to stop hacking us by having clever people on our side, making it more difficult. You're never going to stop everybody from hacking in unless you turn everything off. But what you want to do is you want to put steps in place, gates in place. You want to put fences so that they have to clamber over the fence. It makes it more and more difficult. So the Joe Bloggs, the 14-year-old hacker who is now a sensation, it makes it difficult for him and he gets bored and he stops and he turns around and walks away. It probably wouldn't stop someone like the Reveal attacks because that's a much more organised piece of crime.
It's sophisticated and organised, yeah. And I mean, obviously there's accusations that this is a state-sponsored hack, and in which case, the simple things are not going to block those people either because they're tasked with the job and they're being paid to do that job.
Yep.
Every state in the world probably has a signals division who is tasked with intercepting traffic and interpreting that.
Back in 2014 with the Greece Olympics, and the Italian Winter Olympics, they both got hacked and they couldn't work out who it was. It ended up as being most likely US authorities were the ones doing the hacking, looking after people, and
they were doing it by routing traffic through the US so that for the NSA could tap it.
They were routing,
and also they were putting in particular switches into the telecommunications hubs to be able to just do whatever they wanted.
But if you want to find out how easy it is to create a name on the web, there is a website called Generate a Random Name, fakenamegenerator.com. Wonderful little site. If you want to find out how easy it can be to make somebody's name up, just go to it.
Yeah, I mean, we use that for fake data all the time. Like if we're testing something out, we'll use that to create a fake identity to enter into a particular loop,
which is why
whatever we're testing. Yeah, that's the ethical reason why it's there, but there is a lot of unethical uses for it as well.
What about you've just been doing an upgrade recently for a big client? Any learnings from that with cybersecurity?
Moving parts. So we always talk about, there's a huge amount of moving parts in any system of any size. The fewer number of moving parts you have, the fewer chances you have of being hacked, or more accurately, the easier it is to keep those things up to date. We normally help companies scale up because they've got new or additional services that they're adding. In this particular case, we've been helping a few companies scale down because they've suffered through COVID-19 with a lower revenue, and they hadn't. I guess it's an opportunity to revisit all of the systems that they've put in. As we've taken systems out, we've actually managed to lower the burden on IT support staff because there's less servers and there's less moving parts to fail. Therefore, they can concentrate on the things that are important and not the reactive stuff that happens every day.
And that's a really good point, because we've just completed a major upgrade for a government department. The idea was to upgrade and turn off legacy systems. We've got a massive cloud deployment for a large number of people, and we've ended up by having to leave 5 legacy systems fully operational. Now, the back doors that we found into these legacy systems already are just phenomenal. The ports that were open to allow, Jim has to log in once a week to be able to run run something. And why is he using a non-conventional route to get through? It's because he does it from home. Well, no. And then there was one of the other systems that held confidential data, but it downloaded it to the desktop before manipulating it, sending it back into SQL. But this is just amazing stuff. And now we've got all these legacy systems feeding the very secure cloud system. We have a problem that those legacy systems aren't being updated. They're not being patched, and they're all
and often they can't because the system that's running on them will only run on a version of, say, Windows 2008 or something like that. So Windows 2008 R2, and that's out of maintenance. There's no more security patches for that. So we end up in a situation where we have to just lock this stuff down.
Yeah.
And often, as you said, Jim comes along and says, I need access to that on Thursdays because I'm working from home, which is something that a lot of people are doing at the moment because they're working from home because of the pandemic. So we're kind of in a situation where we need to open up these things because that helps business continuity, but we can't because it compromises security. And there's ways around that, but
there are ways. There's ways of putting it through a Citrix session or a virtual session that you can then log on to the box virtually rather than by taking it over. There's many ways, so you can have that.
You have a Bastion box,
Two-factor authentication would be really good. Two-factor authentication is where it needs to be. You need to make sure you've got multiple layers of authentication to get into any of your secure boxes.
5 things that I think that the individual can do. 1 is get good password management. And I don't mean, setting your password to Charlie 1, then next month it's Charlie 2. I mean, get a password manager and make passwords that you can't remember. Number 2, use two-factor authentication where you can. If you're using a legacy system, maybe you can't, but set up access to that. Number 3, if it looks fake, it probably is. Don't click on it. Be a champion. Don't click on it. Number 4 is it's not just a technology problem, and everybody needs to remember that it's up to them to help identify things that are really weird. Like if you find a USB stick floating around in the office, don't plug it in. And number 5, if you're using your phone or your device or your own thing on a company network, make sure it's patched, make sure it's up to date, and make sure that that you realize that you are now a gateway for hackers to come into that area. Anything else you want to add on that from an individual level?
I think people need to really look at their passwords and how they manage their passwords. What I mean by that is use a password manager that you've got a long phrase for. And when you have a password, make it a phrase. Don't make it a word. Don't have it your name. Go on to Wikipedia and download the 10,000 most commonly used passwords and make sure you're not there. And
it's interesting because Microsoft is saying don't change your password. Just create a brand new,
really hard,
unable to guess password and use two-factor authentication. Just go use a password manager. Don't make up your own passwords. Don't use a nursery rhyme. Just make up a random garbled string of text. Let your password manager deal with it. Just remember to keep a really strong, secure password with two-factor authentication on your password manager so that you can get in.
I fully agree. Fully agree.
Yep.
I'm using LastPass, and a very intelligent person put me onto LastPass, didn't you, Michael?
Yeah, LastPass is good. OnePass is good. There's a few out there.
There's a few of them out there.
Yeah. So for organizations, there's probably 5 things that organizations can do better. One of those is fund your IT department correctly and make security a priority for that funding. Give your sysadmins the resources they need to patch stuff, because some of these vulnerabilities are from last year. That's getting pretty close. I'd expect you to get hacked if you're still using stuff from 2014 or 2012. But these vulnerabilities are only from last year. Secondly, in your network, only open up what you absolutely need. So if you've got a port open for a MySQL server that's open to the world, you should be taken outside and spanked, basically.
Ooh.
Only open up the ports that you need to the IP addresses that you need. Number 3, put in a system so that people can get into your network from outside, but they're still in a safe environment. So this can be a virtual desktop inside your network, or maybe it's a virtual private network for your company, or it's Citrix, or it's terminal server, or something like that. Understandably, there are systems that need access to certain other systems from outside, but you can work around those things by only opening up what you need. Deny everything, open up what you need. Number 4, do regular audits of what is open and what's not open, because you'll be surprised to find out what vulnerabilities are there when you have a look. Number 5, educate your staff on how they can help. And this comes back to my comment before. People are probably better at detecting some of this malware than computers are. So educate your staff. Don't make it a boring PowerPoint presentation. Let them know that they are also responsible for this. It's not just an IT problem.
Yeah,
David, do you have anything to add on that?
I think you should have a look at what ports you've got that are open and close them. I think your IT team should be going through. There are so many ports that applications open nowadays that don't need to be opened, that you should go through and make sure they are closed. And this is obviously an IT.
Yeah.
At an IT level.
That's what I mean by audit. You'd be surprised what's open. Some of those things you do need to close, but some of them do need to be open in order to function.
Yes, I agree.
And that's what I mean is shut down everything, like block everything, and then open up what you need, rather than opening up what you think you need and then coming back from that. I'd rather just go through and blanket shut down everything and then say, right, nothing works. How are we going to make this work?
Then you open it up.
Okay, well, you need to open that one port. Yeah, cool. Okay, got it.
Businesses should be putting money into training all staff upgrading the training of their IT staff, and then upgrading access controls. And I'm not even going to go down that path of making sure all the patches are done, like you've just mentioned, because that's got to happen anyway. But people miss out.
Yeah, that's essential stuff, and
it is. That should be day to day.
Sysadmins are so busy dealing with firefighting because no one's investing in money. No one's investing their money in the stuff that needs to happen.
And when Michael leaves a business or John leaves a business, close his account. Don't leave it open. How many thousands of accounts are left open every week because they don't have the time to do it? There's no procedure in place. Well, no, there might be a procedure in place. It's just classed as a very low requirement.
Priority,
Yep.
And it's not just the systems that IT controls. It's not just Active Directory. Sometimes it's a system that Fred over in accounting has signed up for and just added all of his colleagues in.
Yep.
And then, Sarah leaves the next week and she's pissed off with the company. So therefore, she can still log into Fred's accounting system and get access to whatever she needs.
Building access passes, etc., etc., etc.
Anyway, yep.
What about encrypting hard drives, encrypting private and confidential data? I believe it should be encrypted. I'm a strong believer that you should encrypt your own data or the whole drive. But the problem in that is it can slow things down.
So, any PCI compliance audit or security audit would show that, laptops especially need to be encrypted. You can use BitLocker or something like that, but it does slow things down a bit and it does make it a bit awkward. And if you lose that password for your encrypted drive again, then you're screwed.
You're really screwed.
But in the opposite end of that is if your laptop gets stolen, then it can't be recovered. So that comes back to, it's not just laptops, it's phones, it's tablets and things like that as well. With tablets and phones, we have remote wiping and capability and things like that. So, but laptops, device management is probably something, needs to have a little bit more focus in today's day and age.
Now, we've had conversations over the last few weeks over the Be Kind to Your Mind. I think we need to just keep that going and keep talking about people looking after themselves. I want to give another plug to Beyond Blue. Beyond Blue, 1300 224 636. Again, 1300 224 636 if you need any help. How are your teams or how are the people around you getting back to work, Michael?
Well, I was in the office Monday, and I've been in the office irregularly for the last few weeks. It's pretty empty in there, and a lot of people are still working from home. I think with most of my clients, they're aiming to get their people back into the office in Australia by sort of September. I've got clients in the States who just, sometimes they're restricted to their neighborhood, or at least their county. And obviously the team that I have in Vietnam is fully back to work and everything's operating relatively normally apart from international visitors. Other teams that I'm working with in the Philippines and India are dealing with pretty tight restrictions and that's playing on people's minds, and it's, there's quite a lot of effort gone into making sure that they can access things from home securely, of course, and making sure that they've got the support that they need to access the internet safely and reliably. Also, access to healthcare, and whether that's mental health or physical health.
Well, I've got family overseas who are going through second waves now, both in the UK and elsewhere, but very interesting, very sad, very hard. So, everybody who's listening, if you've got anxieties, you've got worries, speak up. And your worries and anxieties can build up from all sorts of things, from finances, especially now they're talking about JobKeeper and JobSeeker closing down, and you're a small business. You might be worried about returning to work. Don't feel that you're alone. There's a lot of people who are worried about driving to the cities and returning to work. The physical isolation that you've been in. I personally, and I think, Michael, you are as well, we loved being isolated. We loved it. But now we're coming out of that shell and going, I drove into the city for the first time last night, and it was, oh my God, I haven't seen any of this for about 3 months. And it went through my thought, how am I coping with that? And it's a very interesting statement. Talk to your kids. Kids understand what's going on. They have to have a level of detail to know that they're going through, and stay in contact with the people around you, because your well-being is how you keep your people around you happy and healthy.
Agree. Hey, thanks for listening, and make sure to subscribe using your favorite podcast software. Leave a comment for us or send us a message on Twitter. David is at Dave with 7. That's the numeral 7. And I'm at Michael Lobb, Lobb.
Thanks a lot for everybody. Comment.
Thanks,
like,
David.
Distribute.
Subscribe. Share.
So safe.
See ya. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Does that mean I'm staying signed on, or are we signing off?
Yeah, you're signed on 24/7, mate.
Oh,
you're going to talk to everyone over and over and over.